Hello everybody and welcome back inside the State Champ Studios. Like always, alongside former Michigan State Spartan McKenzie Long, my name is Kara Liles. And I got here before Kenzie this morning, and I'm just sitting in my chair reading over some notes, and I see her walk in, and she's got a bat in her hand. So why the bat? What do we got today?
You know, our pitchers are the ones stealing the show, so I'm excited to kind of dig in and talk about approach and how our hitters can approach our pitchers.
So Kenzie's going to do a little demo, a little talk about the mindset a little bit later on in the show. But let's talk some softball games, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, Mercy versus Lutheran North. I mean, Caitlin Palazzi, lights out. What has she got going for right now?
You know, Mercy is 21-0 on the season, and she's a phenomenal pitcher. And one of the things that she throws really well is she's a power pitcher. She throws hard in the zone, but she's able to mix that with off speed, and that's what makes her so dominant, right? And in this game, she had 11 strikeouts. She only let up one hit, and that seems to be her theme, you know, is high strikeouts, low hits, which is the theme for success.
And how important is it, you know, you mentioned changing the speed. When you have so much power, you're throwing so hard to be able to, you know, change it up a little bit with something off speed.
And that's what makes our pitchers great, and that's why our pitchers are dominating, is they're able to mix speeds. When you're somebody like Caitlin who throws consistently hard, when she starts to run into really good teams, they're going to catch up to that. But it's the ability to mix speeds and keep the hitters guessing is what allows a pitcher to be dominant, and that's exactly what she does. She changes locations, but she also changes speeds. And so when you're facing somebody that's throwing 65, 66, and then a changeup that's 54, 53, you're kind of guessing a little bit up there.
And I feel like sometimes you see, you know, them reaching out there a little bit, and we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the show, but how important is it to just see the ball when it's coming out of their hand? You know?
Yeah, and that's, you know, I think I'm excited to look forward to what we're going to talk about, but when you are facing a pitcher that is throwing so well and you know that she is dominant, the biggest thing you have to have is an approach. You can't hit everything, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But Caitlin is somebody that you need to have an approach. You need to make sure that you're sitting a certain speed and not trying to guess at everything.
And talk about dominant. I mean, Algonac versus Dakota. So many big names in this game. Just a huge matchup. And when you think of these two schools and these two programs, I mean, powerhouse. That's all that comes to mind.
Yeah, the big names are the ones that stood out, and that's what we were talking about last week about making sure you're performing in these big games, and our big time players did, right? Ella Stevenson hit the lone run of the game. Kenna Bomarito shut Dakota out, but Megan Nectarline and Gracie Maloney also threw well, right? And it's funny because Ella hit the home run off Gracie, and they're travel ball teammates, and so that leaves it fun. But you know, the big names showed out, the big names were able to perform, and we had a really good game. You know, a lot of the games we've been talking about have been these crooked numbers, these high scoring games. So it was kind of fun to see a pitcher's duel a little bit with the 1-0 and see a clutch hit actually be the game winner for them.
And I want to go back a little bit. You talked about, you know, just being able to perform in these big games, and a lot of the members of our top 10 list are, you know, it is important for them to go out in these big games and kind of show out. Why don't you talk a little bit about how important that is? I know we talked about it last week, but
yeah, you know, when you're facing a team like Dakota, when you're Algonac, right? That's a way to put a stamp on your resume. That's a way to boost confidence, things like that. And in those games, those are the games where Ella Stevenson and Kenna Bomarito need to show up. They need to perform for their teams, and that's exactly what they did. Kenna on the pitching side, she was able to strike out 9, and Ella coming up big with the hit. And when that's what we're looking at, but that's also what the college coaches are looking at.
And it's more of like a momentum thing as well, right? You see, you know, your stars, quote unquote, performing. It kind of inspires you that, okay, let me go out and let me put my stamp on this game.
Exactly. I think, you know, what's cool about that is a game that it was 1-0 is won by defense. And so even though the big name showed out for them, you can't win those games without defense. In that game, you know, Dakota actually had a triple with less than 2 outs, and the next batter ended up hitting a ball to shortstop, and they were able to hold the runner, throw one. And so these big names are showing out, but again, like you said, with confidence, the team around them are able to play a little bit more confidently and make plays that are also game-changing plays. So the home runs are nice, but those mundane routine plays are really what separates teams and allows them to be successful.
Did you, when you were in high school, did you ever have a team that you went to school and you just had butterflies all day? Just
Yes,
was there any
yes.
one specific team?
Yes, we played this a team in school. It was our rival, and
Yep.
there's a lot of big names on that team. And so every time I went, I was just so excited.
Yep.
I just wanted to go home and
Yep.
or go to the game. I
Yep.
just wanted to get school over with. And
Yep.
I have a feeling that these are what these kids are experiencing. And kind of what we talked about last week with Coach Jay is being able to use that anxiety, that
Yep.
excitement,
Yep.
and then perform. And one of the things that I'm noticing a little bit with our team, with our games, is it's the older players that are performing, and so younger players need to understand it's okay. They're gonna grow up, they're gonna mature,
Yep.
and that's what you want to do. As long as year by year by year you're maturing,
Yep.
then once you're a junior, senior, you're gonna understand how to control that excitement, those
Yep.
nerves, and be able to perform too.
And like you said, it comes with experience. It's not something you just have as a freshman, right?
100%.
And speaking of freshmen, Grand Haven versus Rockford, freshman Laura Lee Chuck, 17 strikeouts.
Yeah, that was a game where the younger players actually showed out. Laura Lee, 17 strikeouts. I mean,
17.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for her. But the other thing is on the other side of that, she also had 2 hits. And sophomore Haley also had 3 hits and led the way offensively for Grand Haven. And so we're talking about these, juniors, seniors
Right.
performing, but the younger players showed out in this game.
Is there any sort of stigma, like a freshman pressure that kind of comes along with being one of the youngest on the team?
I think it's more of the sophomores, right?
Okay.
You come in as a freshman, there's a lot of just freedom to play because
You're a freshman.
Congratulations, you're a freshman,
Yep.
you made varsity.
Yep.
But then there's that sophomore, they call it the sophomore slump,
Yep.
right? Is can you perform your sophomore year when they know you? You kind of do have a little bit more pressure
Yep.
because you've been there. There's no longer the excuse that you're the freshman.
Right.
And so the sophomore slump is kind of a real thing. And, Haley being able to perform with 3 hits, it's a big deal for them.
And like we said, just experience, just being able to go out there and feel comfortable, it's something that's going to come with time.
And talk about experience for Grand Haven. I mean, Rockford has played a lot of very, very quality opponents,
Yep.
right? They handed Hudsonville their only loss of the season.
Yep.
So for Grand Haven to be able to perform against Rockford, who has experience
Right.
against really good quality opponents,
Right.
is not only are you taking the experience for the young players, but against quality opponents that know how to win
Yep.
and know how to compete against the best.
And moving on ahead, we have Heartland versus Clarkson. Kylie, 5 shutout innings, just so dominant. What did you see from her?
Kylie's special because she is somebody that when you face her and when you go to see her, you're like, man, she is just killing the strike zone.
Yep.
She's just pounding the strike zone,
Yep.
one after the other after the other. She just paints it, and she does a really good job. And so against Clarkson, who has some very, very good, seasoned hitters on that
Yep.
team, and they weren't able to touch her. And so being able to go zone by zone by zone is what makes Kylie successful.
And I feel like when I was growing up, I heard this all the time. Don't take the first strike. But I mean, when you have somebody that's, like you said, just constantly pounding the strike zone, I mean, I know you said last week you always took the first strike, right? I mean, what do we got? I mean,
well, I think for Kylie, one of the things, so she has barely any walks this season,
awesome.
but
Crazy.
she also doesn't give up a ton of hits. And so what that tells me is when the hitter's in a 3-0, 3-1 count, not only is she being able to throw a strike, but she's not missing and throwing a strike right down the middle.
Right.
She's still able to paint a corner and have confidence in painting a corner, because usually when pitchers get behind 3-0, they usually just throw it right down the middle and things like that. Kylie is not like that. She's great command of her zone, and she's able to hit different locations. And so, yeah, when you're facing somebody like Kylie who paints the zone as well as she does,
Yep.
you want to attack early in the zone, because she will, go rise ball in, change up, and things like that.
She's going to get tricky with it. And talking about this Heartland team, so many different role players, right? Just so many girls on this team that know their role and play it well.
Heartland had 6 extra base hits in that game out of 11 hits, so more extra bases than not. They had 3 home runs, 2 off the bat of Kate McIntyre, 1 off the bat of Abby Gardner. Both of those players are their seasoned players. It's a junior and a senior.
Yep.
And so they own their role really well. But one thing that makes Heartland so unique is they do have such a wide variety of freshmen and seniors that are playing. When you look around, you see, seniors, freshmen, sophomore, and it's just they're contributing all around. They had the seniors hit the home runs, the seniors and the juniors hit the home runs, But then they had the youngsters, the freshmen and the sophomores, hit the doubles.
Yep.
You know, but Kate McIntyre, that's who I want to give a shout out to. She, you know, 3 extra base hits, 5 RBIs. She's just rolling, and it's so exciting to see. And so, you know, Heartland is somebody that you want to watch out for sure.
How fun is it to watch when you do have, you know, freshmen and seniors, just how they interact and how they are able to learn from each other? Like, I feel like that's very easy to see, right?
Oh, for sure. When you go out and watch Heartland, you can see the leaders on the team, and you can see most of Heartland leads by example. You have Abby Gardner, who's been around, who's played very high-level ball for a very long time. And then you have Kate McIntyre, who also has played high-level ball, and Kylie Swarkos. Like, Kylie's a senior too, and she wants to go out with a bang. And so she's, you know, guiding these younger players and guiding them and allowing them to have the freedom to play, but also teaching them through it. And you can see that as they progress throughout the season, they've just gotten better. And a lot of these players, you know, what's cool about it is a lot of these players play together within an organization of training too.
Right.
And so it's kind of fun to watch. Like, they see each other within our facility, and they're learning, you know, at a younger age how to help each other. And so, you know, our freshmen are showing out, and Reese Dunny and those guys, and then our sophomores are showing out, and Skylar and Sadie and all those guys. But then our juniors and seniors on the team are really, really providing the pathway for them.
And it's cool to see the bond. You know, you see each other at the facility all the time.
Yes.
Because it's not just, you know, a day here or there. It's all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Abby Gardner played for Ron Pizzoni, now plays for her dad at Turning 2, and I have 2 players that are actually on my team, my travel team, on the team, and so we sometimes practice together. So they're able to create that bond before they even start in high school, and they're seeing why they're successful.
Speaking of success, Sherry Ritz from Wayland, I think it is so insane. 1,000 wins. I can't wrap my head around 1,000 wins.
You know, 37 seasons. Sherry she's just so. I was watching an interview of her after the 1,000th win, and she just kept saying, "It's about the kids. It's about the kids. It's about the kids." And I'm like, that's how you win 1,000 games. When you have a mindset that it's about the players. I mean, 37 seasons. That's a lot of players coming in and out, and the amount of players that she's been able to touch has really showed. But when you make it about the kids, that's when, you know. And she is the aunt of Central Michigan coach Brittany Merchant, and so she's not only about the kids, but she's paving ways for her family to also coach.
And you can just like feel the love. You know, you just feel the love for the game, the kids. She really just enjoys.
She does. She enjoys it. She loves it, and that's how you can see 1,000 wins, and it doesn't look like she's stopping anytime soon. So congratulations, Sherry. That's super exciting.
All right, Kenzie, well, it is time to talk Softball Player of the Year presented by Turn 2. Got another new name on our list this week.
Yeah, Caitlin DeWitt. She's been an absolute tear in the box. Grand Blanc is also making a run. And so when your 4-hole hitter, like Caitlin, is being able to perform like she's performing, it earned her spot on our list.
Right, and the majority of the players on our top 10 list are pitchers. And as we get closer, you know, to districts and regionals, it's so important for these hitters to have, you know, just a strong approach as they're going up against so many dominant players. 100%.
Our pitchers on our list are really, really quality pitchers from our 2025 all the way up to our seniors. And what makes them so unique and so dominant is their ability to mix zones.
Right.
And so understanding how to have an approach when you're facing these pitchers is huge for our hitters to have success against them.
So what do you mean by approach? I mean, what is it, a mindset thing? What do we mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. For these pitchers, they throw different quadrants, and they throw different speeds in those different quadrants. And so when you're ready for everything, you're essentially ready for nothing, which is why we're seeing such high strikeout numbers for these pitchers. And so our goal is making sure that when we go up, we know what pitches that we're hunting, but we're simplifying that approach, and we're just knowing what part of the zone we're hunting for and what kind of swing we need to put on in that zone.
So what is your advice? I mean, if you have one thing that you're telling your kids when they walk into that box, is there anything that stands out?
So we have a few pitchers on our list that are what we would consider power pitchers, throwing high, mid-60s. But then we have pitchers on our list that are throwing more just spins, different locations, and both are very hard to hit. So when you're facing somebody that has that power pitcher, your ideal situation would be pick one speed. You can't defend the speed, and you can't defend the changeup. And so understanding what speed you're hunting for is key. When you are facing somebody like a Kylie or Megan Nectarline who throws a little bit more, they command the zone really well. They throw rise balls and curve balls and screw balls. You want to pick a zone. And so essentially when you're going into the box, if you're swinging at everything, your bat path is not going to match their pitch, right? And so for me, I would hunt a screwball. That's on the outer zone because I'm a lefty. And so ideally what I would make sure is that my bat path is going towards left field. So when I say if you're ready for everything, you're really ready for nothing, is because if I'm going through the zone just like this, then a screwball is going to curve away, a curve is going to come into me, and my bat path doesn't match that plane, doesn't match that. So whoever I'm facing, I'm going to pick a quadrant and I'm going to make sure my bat path matches that quadrant, whatever pitch it is. If I feel more comfortable hitting changeups, then I'm going to make sure that I'm softer in that front leg, so then that way I can stay through the ball a little bit better. Where if I'm facing somebody that throws high, I'm going to make sure I'm a little bit more back so my barrel can be firm at the top part.
What do you mean by back?
Yeah, so
I had issues with the high pitches. So what do you mean by
essentially what happens when you face somebody that throws high, and a lot of our pitchers on our top 10 list throw high. That's where they get their hitters. Regan Bennett's a rise ball pitcher. Caitlin Palazzi is. What we want to do is we want to have an even weight distribution, and we want to make sure that when we don't turn, we don't lose our hinge and come underneath like this. And that's usually where hitters are unsuccessful against high pitching, is they come in, they see the pitch, and their eyes get big because it's eye level. And so you're like, oh, I got it, and they immediately go this way. When we go this way, my barrel's coming underneath because the ball's coming up. So when I'm saying staying back is I want to stay weight here and just turn my barrel so I enter the top part of the zone.
Okay, and what about something that's outside to a lefty or righty? You know, something that kind of dives a little late in the zone maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what happens is hitters become so concerned about the finish of their swing, they forget that the extension piece is truly what matters. So if I'm going, for me, it would be a screwball. If I'm going out to this screwball and I'm worried about my finish, I'm going to come off and pull off. So essentially I'm pulling off the spin of the ball. And so what I want to focus on when I'm facing somebody that throws consistently outside would be making sure that I stay through it long enough for my barrel to stay on the spin versus off the spin.
And you hear people talk a lot about, you know, go with the pitch and like think right field. Does that help?
You know, it helps in the sense of if you have tools. And that's the biggest thing I encourage these hitters to do, is make sure that they have the tools in their toolbox to know how to hit different pitches. Because when you're facing a drop ball, rise ball, changeup, all those pitches, you want to make sure you know the timing that you need to hit it. You need to know what your barrel needs to be, things like that. When you're facing somebody that's throwing high, your barrel needs to get out in front more because you need to get on the up part of your swing. When you're facing somebody lower, that throws maybe lower in the zone and or drops, you want to wait a little bit deeper so you can get through it and get the barrel up. So those things matter, and so yeah, that's great to say throw your hands at it. But making sure you have the tools and knowing exactly what that means is really what's going to allow a hitter to be successful.
And you talked about the finish. I mean, is the finish important to a swing?
You know, you can watch some of the best hitters right now, whether it's in baseball and or softball. And, you know, I would be remiss to not talk about Oklahoma. They're the best in the country in hitting. When you watch your hitters, whether it's Jada Coleman or Grace Lyons, they half the time don't finish their swing. They hit through extension. So the key for our hitters is to make sure they're hitting through extension, not off the ball. And so if we're hitting through extension, they're essentially going to stay on the ball as long as possible, and the finish is just the finish.
Well, be sure to cast your vote for any of our top 10 members. Megan Nectarline still leading that online vote. You can cast your votes at statechampsw.com. And it seems that we've made it through the rough patch of weather. The cold, the rain seems to be behind us. And we've got some big tournaments this week.
Yeah, the Canton tournaments this weekend and the Blue Chip tournament in Grand Rapids. So we're going to have teams from all over the state competing, and so we're excited to see what they bring.
And you know, as we get closer to that state tournament, you know, these weekends become pretty important.
Yeah, they're momentum building weekends, whether it's for the youngsters and the freshmen or for the hitters that need to build on an approach, and for our stud pitchers that are killing it in the circle.
And those hitters, so let's hope those bats stay hot.
Yes, and let's hope those infielders turn too.
State Champs Swing Away is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Be curious, make magic, visit ltu.edu. Swing Away is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud sponsor of the MHSAA. The Detroit Athletic Club Foundation Male and Female Athlete of the Year Awards. Who will be this year's award winners? Find out live June 5th only on State Champs Sports Network. Turn Into Softball. Experience Turn Into Softball, where the mission to build champions both on and off the field.